Hello and welcome into the Touchdown NFL podcast, a special edition of the podcast this week, or on this Friday evening, should I say. Joined by Willow as always, but also joined by the big boss, the main man, Si, as well. The boys are down in or near London as they've been previewing the Falcons and the Jags, who are obviously playing at Wembley Stadium on Sunday. The 34th London game, so quite a few, seasoned at this now, aren't we, boys? Jags hosting back-to-back games for the first time in London, and obviously the first of 2 consecutive weeks. So, yeah, welcome in both. Obviously a busy day for you both at the Jags and the Falcons camps. But yeah, to welcome you in, how's everything been for you guys these days or today?
It's been a long day, but I've really enjoyed it, just 34 games is something incredible, isn't it? I guess, you don't really think about it. I mean, I think this, right, I will go to the Jags and Falcons and report back from there on Sunday, and that'll be my 13th personally. So I bet Willow's can beat me on that front. Have you got a season ticket, Willow?
I do, but we can't go to every game. Like I can't go to the Bills Jags next weekend, for example. There was one, which was it was the Saints last season that we didn't go to for obvious reasons. But 34 is way more than I expected. I don't know why I expected it to be sort of much lower, considering Jacksonville have now played a third of those. Yeah, it's crazy. It's good though. I mean, I said it on their podcast in the week, and I wrote about it. These are good. I enjoy them. They're nice. They're nice. They're lovely.
They are. They're an essential part of the calendar now, aren't they? With obviously the game growing in the UK and obviously worldwide as well. And it just feels great that we've got like a fixture. It can happen every year. It's great to have the commitment of the Jags to come over, multiple times now per year, and just really kind of set up a home away from home, as we'll kind of talk about as we move on. But you're both very seasoned in coming to the London games, being a part of this experience. We've had a tweet go out, I think it was yesterday, wasn't it, Si, where you put out a tweet asking for some interaction about people's experiences. What about your guys' experience? How's it kind of developed over time for both of you?
Well, you won't be surprised to know, Wakey, that my first game was the Chargers in 2008. I've still got a cup or a mug that survived that long, 15 years now. It actually was 6 days after I met my wife, which is pretty. It makes it easy to remember our anniversary.
Yeah.
Put it that way. That's how it started. Obviously, Drew Brees annoying the hell out of me by throwing the ball out the back of the end zone for a safety to nix the game, which I still have a problem with that rule. I think it's absolutely disgraceful way to win a football game. That's how it started, and I think we had a couple of years off, but then we started thinking about just choosing one of the games a year as they started picking things up, and then obviously I started doing a bit of writing for the Jaguars, so I tried to cover those, and we've been privileged. I think in general, the real vibe about having these games over here is it's a privilege, and for us in particular, a website that we've all had a hand in setting up and working hard on, and be able to have the opportunity to report back to people in this country about, not just the game itself, which people can go to, but the stuff that goes involved in it, like all the teams coming over, the big NFL machine, so to speak, that really just uproots and comes over en masse. It's a big operation. I'm sure Willow will tell you the same down at Harrow today, but in Watford, the Grove, where the Jaguars were, there must have been hundreds and hundreds of staff members organising, shepherding around, filling for press conferences, giving us access to watching the players practice, which really is just a lot of stretches. But I mean, in general, this is things you would never dream of, isn't it? Really, I think is the point. And sometimes I do feel a bit guilty about it, particularly when they dare suggest that a team would give up 2 home games, because if you think about it, some teams only get 8 home games a season. And to give up a quarter of that would be rude. I'd be furious if I was a fan of stateside. So wondering where it goes from here is the big question, and it does have to go somewhere really. But that being said, I mean, consider it's our passion. We are very lucky to be in this position.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Willow? Same sort of thing to you. What's your experience in sort of the games and how it's developed over time?
Yeah, man. The first one I went to was in 2010. It was the 49ers against the Broncos. It was dreadful. One of the worst games. I think one of the worst. The first 3 quarters, I think there were maybe 3 points or something. Was it Troy Smith, the 49ers quarterback?
Yeah,
just some guy.
I was just trying to find out as well.
Just some guy, and then at the end it's like, oh, I think the 49ers might have found their long-term quarterback, and my 49ers mate turns to me and goes, what are you talking about? Like, how have you taken that? I was more interested. Obviously, I've been into the NFL for a couple of years at that point, but I was more interested because My Chemical Romance were doing the pre-game show, and they're my band. So but I had a few years off. Falcons came over in 2014. Arthur Blank proclaimed that London could not only host one but two NFL teams sort of stationed here, and I'm like, no, all right, if you say so. Can't remember how the game ended. That was we could have lost. I don't know. And then from about 2016 onwards, did we? I don't recall. I think I left half time. It was fine. About 2016 onwards, we, as a group, our immediate friendship group, started sort of, like you say, trying to pick out one game, and then season tickets came available, and then was like, well, if we all chip in, we'll have these tickets, and that's where we are today. And like you say, when it comes to what happens next, obviously having the 17th game just suggests that there is going to be an international game a season for most, if not all, teams. I don't know how that works. I'm not the one behind the logistics behind that, so I don't want to figure out how that works. But there's always this question in the background. I don't even know who's pushing it at this point, but it's, can London or can Europe get a franchise or two? And that's a conversation that has died down a little bit recently, but it keeps coming back. And I still don't know how I feel about that. Like you say, when I first heard about the London games, I was pretty upset on behalf of Americans, because if the Premier League, for example, sent Brighton and, I don't know,
be careful now,
Wolves, whoever, over to New York to play a game, it's just kind of like, well, why are you doing that? It's the English Premier League kind of thing. But at the same time, very privileged, enjoy going to them. As I say, I've softened on them a bit. I really enjoy going to these games. Obviously, looking forward to Sunday and the game after the next one. And yeah, it's a privilege. We get three of them, sometimes four, sometimes two, depending on the state of the world. But we only get a handful of them for a couple of weeks, and just enjoy them, kind of thing. Because rambling.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I've been to a couple of London games, and I've had some really cool experiences. It has allowed me to meet Philip Rivers, for example, when he was the Chargers quarterback, and a few of the Chargers players, and just kind of meet a lot of like-minded people. Through modern technology, podcasts, things like that, social media, you can meet a lot of these people. As kind of we've got together over the years and things like that, but it allows you to kind of meet up in person, have that shared experience of going to the games themselves, not just talking about them every week. You know what I mean? So I think it's really cool. It's like, say, a privilege. I think you've got guys have both nailed it, really, in terms of how it has developed over time, and how great it is just to have live NFL that you can see with your own eyes, and it's not just a television program, which is just another level. Even if the crowd is a mixed crowd, it's not a partisan crowd, which I think is kind of maybe the next step in that development. And like I say, Will, I think you bang on. I think that's the reason why the 17th game is there. It's a slow burn. It's to kind of get people used to that, and then they'll kind of introduce that as a worldwide thing. It won't just be Europe. It'll probably Mexico and maybe somewhere else in South America, in Brazil. Maybe, I know there's a lot of NFL fans down there. China, maybe Saudi Arabia. All these places are going to have a lot of money to throw at the NFL. So I don't see that being not a thing in the future, to be honest with you. So yeah, definitely, something to keep an eye on. But we're here not just to talk about the London games in general, but we're here to talk about the actual game that's going on between Willow's Falcons and the Jaguars. And obviously, like, as I said, you guys have been around the players, around the training facilities, the temporary training facilities at Harrow and at the Grove. Lads, you've been at the press conferences, you've been around these teams. What's your big takeaway from what you've seen from the Jags today, or heard from the Jags today? I know you've been on Twitter and you've been talking about how you've seen Doug Pedersen. Has he been saying anything of note, of interest?
I managed to fire a couple of quick questions off to Doug, and I could see in his eyes he was impressed with the questions. I could tell.
Of course.
To be honest, I think the overarching experience for me now is seeing the Jaguars. This is probably the fourth time I've called the Jaguars since they come over. They're just a lot more comfortable here now. Like they operate out the Grove every year. It feels like they know what they're doing. They know the way around the place. It's an amazing place anyway, isn't it? The Grove. We know this. but yeah, I mean, it's going to be different this time next week when they've been here for 9 or 10 days and they're playing the Bills. That might be a different scenario for them, but this isn't new to them, so they feel very comfortable, and the seasoned in how to get by it with minimum distraction, essentially. So they shoehorn us in for 20 minutes of watching them when they're not really doing anything. They send up the big dogs. We had Dougie P, we had Trev, and we had Calvin today come to the press, and obviously we had people outside like TalkSport and Richard Graves and whatnot. They've managed to get a few other people for a few minutes, but for us mere mortals in the press conference, we got about 30 minutes with the guys, and just very engaging, relaxed, really, considering they're not in the greatest position at the moment. The Jaguars, the press conferences over in America recently from the Jaguars have been a lot more tense, I'd say. Not really from the press side of things, but from staff, the Jaguars coaching staff. They're annoyed, they're upset with how they're playing. It's obviously the expectations were a lot higher this year, considering they squeezed into the playoffs last year and beat the Chargers in that crazy game. And the last two games haven't lived up to those expectations. And Doug Peters is a very calm, placid, relaxed guy, but you could see it in the Sunday and the Monday presses this week. He was annoyed. He was very annoyed, and he said that he wanted to see how they reacted this week in training and how, and I asked him today. I said, what have you seen that makes you think, how have they reacted, and what makes you think they can beat the Falcons on Sunday? He didn't really go into too much detail. He just said he was very happy with how they trained, and they were focused. I asked him how they're going to compete, how they're going to cope with a very different run game compared to what we've seen so far, the Jaguars have seen so far, because obviously the Falcons are going to come locked and loaded on the ground, I think it's fair to say. And the Jaguars are missing Devin Lloyd as well, which is crucial linebacker with his speed to combat what Bijan's going to bring to the table. He just said discipline. He didn't really. He was worried, I think, but he just said discipline. But in general, yeah, I think after the dust has died down, and Doug Peterson really says like that they've just been pressing too hard. This team's still the talented team everyone thinks they are. They've got it in the locker. They just need to calm down a little bit. Calvin really a perfect example. Really, he had two crucial drops last week, and it's just totally out of character for him. And I asked him how he was looking forward to facing his former employers, and he obviously deadpanned it. He was like, "Oh yeah, they're a good football team. I look forward to seeing what they bring on the field, etc., etc." But the overarching opinion is that he's going to be desperate to have a huge game on Sunday. And is that going to affect how he plays? Are they going to have another game where they try too hard and just rather than just get the win? Who knows? I wrote. Oh, we'll get to it in a bit, I think. But yeah, I think it's quite a crucial 2 weeks this for the Jaguars.
It is, like say, coming off the back of a 20-point loss to a team that everyone really, pretty much counts as an inferior team in the division is quite shocking, like you say, and it's a playoff team from last year. And I think that's exactly it. I think that's the symptom that they were just trying too hard. But they'll be all right, won't they? And we'll come on to what we've written and things like that over on the touchdown a little bit later on. But Willow, what about you? What have you taken away from today being around the Falcons, apart from just fangirling, I'd imagine?
Just a really good day. So that I went to the I was lucky enough to go to the press stuff in 2021, and that was very much my fangirly experience as Matt Ryan walks up to the podium, and I'm too scared to ask him a question, which I deeply regret. So I tried to be a bit more sort of out there for this one, but no, I've got to say that the facilities at in Harrow are exceptional. They've tennis courts as far as the eye can see, not necessarily relevant, but they've got some some equipment, I can tell you. Just Arthur Smith obviously being stoic and professional and trying not to give too much away. Put a huge emphasis on trying to sort of be the team in the scrap. They've got to be the team that feels like they're the ones in the fight. Big emphasis. Well, one of the big takeaways from the Lions' defeat on Sunday was that the Lions just came out and sort of slapped them, and the Falcons did not have a response. And there was a lack of intensity. He felt like there was a lack of fight, and that affected their ability to move the ball offensively. And then they were given critical sort of downs on defense as well. It's just being the team that is in the fight. Asked a question. We'll get on to it, but I had a very specific question in mind that the Orlando Ledbetter Atlanta Sports journalist legend got in immediately. So I was like, D-Led, how dare you? Asked him about Younghoe Koo, who's come up under a little bit of criticism recently. He's usually quite automatic, but he missed he missed an extra point against Green Bay, a field goal against the Lions. There's a little bit of they've been trying out some kickers, but he was, again, very steadfast. I believe in Younghoe. He's got the right mindset, all that sort of stuff. Again, very similar to what I imagine happened with the Jaguars. I mean, Bijan Robinson comes over and Kyle Pitts comes over and Younghoe Koo comes over, and I have a minute and a half conversation with Younghoe Koo without really asking any questions, just trying to get something. But he's so tired, bless him. They don't want to talk. But the other day, they don't want to talk to us because they are shattered. Every single AJ Terrell is how was the flight over? He's like, I got some sleep and I'm tired. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's like, obviously, because you set off like 8 hours ago. You literally just landed. Crazy. But yeah, the warm ups. We did get some throwing and catching. I didn't want to just sort of. My opinion of Desmond Ridder has not necessarily changed recently, but there were causes for concern coming away from Sunday. So for me to be watching on the sideline as every single pass is behind him, by design, makes me think, okay, so we're not going to try and force it downfield anymore. Okay, let's see where this kind of goes. But it's the show. Like we got like 15 minutes, and then it's like, okay, you've got to go back. They got to carry on doing what they're doing. So they're doing their stuff. But no, yeah, I mean, this is like what I want to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. So like just being around like a professional sports outfit that I just so happen to adore, and speaking to the players and speaking to the coach and having my question answered by Arthur Smith staring me dead in the eyes as he tells me about how much he believes in Younghoe Koo is just a surreal experience, which I really enjoyed. I loved. Yeah, it was great. Not so much a fan of the walk there and back. That's if Harrow can do anything, it's sort of level out the ground a bit. I was so tired. But that's not something the Falcons can do, I'm afraid. But hopefully, I mean, I came away from it feeling a little bit more sort of optimistic about where we're going. But I think was always going to happen. So, yeah, good.
No, that's awesome. Just flipping back over to the Jags then, Si, you obviously kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier on. Obviously, earlier in the week, you wrote an article entitled "What is Wrong with the Jags?" That is over at the Touchdown website. For anyone who's not read it, go over there and read it. It's great work. I read it earlier in the week. Si, what are your conclusions about that? What did you kind of come to in the article? And has anything changed having seen and heard what you've said and heard today?
I think there's 2 points on this. I think the first one is to acknowledge that what the standard, the kind of like the standard line is out of the coaches is true. The things haven't quite come together yet. It's just a little bit scratchy. They've just pushing a little bit too hard. Calvin, obviously, with his drops last week. Trev's been a little bit off on a couple of his throws. And I think there's also a little bit of chemistry to build up as well, because Zay Jones is looking very unlikely to play on Sunday. Who really, I mean, as good as Calvin is, Zay and Trevor had a really good connection last year, and they're very much in sync. And you can tell he misses that. Jamal Agnew will step in and play for him, but he's also limited, and that could be a big loss for the Jaguars because he'll be the kick in front return of 2. So you have some guys. You'll have Parker Washington step up as a receiver, and I can't remember who he said would step up on kickoff return. Dearness Johnson would return kick, so that was quite interesting. But yeah, there's some injury issues. We know this. Offensive line have got a couple of pieces. Cam Robinson suspended. I don't think that they were worried too much about the injuries so much. I think they should be better despite the injuries anyway. I think they just think it's a calm down thing. But I also think there's some personnel things as well. Like they didn't go out in the off season and bring in a pass rusher, which is something that the fans of the Jaguars have been screaming out for ages. And yet, just Trent Baalke, obviously, with GM there, and I know he's not got a lot of admirers across the NFL fiefdom, has he really, for his time in San Francisco and his early tenure with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. That being said, this is a close team. there is a lot of talent on this team. People expect them to win the AFC South. People expect them to beat the playoffs. People expect them to challenge in the playoffs, or certainly did do before these 3 games. What's wrong with the Falcons? Nothing that can't be fixed, but I do think they need to fix it before they leave London. I think if they walk away from London with no wins, it's a problem. It's a problem that needs serious addressing. They need to beat the Falcons. I think. I think I saw the line. It's like it's a very close game. I think it's the Falcons are giving 3 points to the Jaguars. The Jaguars are favourites by a field goal, essentially. Last time I looked, I think it's played tighter than that, to be honest, considering the way these two teams are playing. It's just not quite right. But you can overreact to these things. Some teams will overreact to these things, and others will just work through them. If this is the Steelers, I don't think anybody would be half as panicking because we just trust Mike Tomlin and that culture and that organisation to eventually shine through. I think that's what the Jaguars need to do, really. But there will be some nerves jangling a little bit if they struggle on Sunday and then have to welcome the Bills to London after that.
That's it. Yeah, I'm sure if there's any under or overreaction, Stephen will cover it in his column next week on the touchdown. So, flipping it over to Willow, there's a good bit of optimism. You've been talking about on the podcast each week. Obviously, it got quelled a little bit against the Lions, but we saw last night that they're pretty legit. Has that result knocked the wind completely out of the sails, or is there reason for optimism still with the Falcons there against like I say, it's like Si's been saying, really, a Jags team that are a bit wounded at the moment, and they're there for the take in some respects.
The funny thing about the Thursday night game was waking up and seeing all of the Falcons fans that I follow turning around and going, "Oh, maybe we were a bit too harsh on Sunday because the Lions are really good." So in hindsight, only conceding 20 points, maybe we're not that bad. I don't know. It's a weird one because for myself personally, my opinion on where the Falcons should be this season has always been they have to make the playoffs this season. They've had 2 7-9 records with no money to work with. They've got some money now. They went out, spent big on Jesse Bates and David Onyemata, and Caleb McGarry got a huge extension. You've now got to kind of say, this is a proof of concept this season. This works. We can take it into the playoffs. Granted, we've got a weakened schedule and a weakened division. It has to be playoffs, or questions are probably going to be asked. Through the first 3 weeks, I think there has probably more positives than negatives. The run game works, clearly. Bijan Robinson is a superstar. Tyler Algier is a very good RB2. He was asked about that today. There was what is it, Texas Longhorns? Is that the college? Is that the college that he went to? Is that the thing? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So somebody asked him if it's their year. I don't know if that's a thing, but he said hook 'em, and then took a picture with the guy. So the run game works, and Cordell Patterson has obviously not been available for the last 3 weeks. Best player in the NFL. Hopefully, he's going to be available this Sunday. There is legitimate opportunity for the Falcons to take steps forward. I don't think the wind's been knocked out completely, but I have certainly seen a lot of concern over the last week. I don't know how much of it is overreaction. I don't know how much of it is legitimate and fair. It's only the 3rd week, and the Falcons did just play a very good team. I do feel as if this feels to me like the last weekend again. I think where the Jacksonville Jaguars excel defensively, the Atlanta Falcons offense does not so much. They are very good against run. How much of that they're going to miss with the injury that I mentioned there, I don't know. But they are excellent against the run. They're a top 6 defensive unit against the run, but they are not very good against the pass. The Falcons can run the ball for days, and they can't pass the ball for toffee. So I mean, it's who gives. It's who blinks first kind of thing. If the Falcons can click offensively in the pass game, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars might have to answer some questions. If the Falcons miss a few throws early on and then sort of confidence starts to dip, it might be a long afternoon for Atlanta. So yeah, it's an intriguing one in that sense. I'm not just on the 2 London games for the Jaguars. Do we think this is going to become a a fixture, not necessarily something they do every single season where they come over and do the home game and the away game back to back every single year. But do we think it's something that they sort of bring into their sort of rotation? Because I can fully see a scenario where they decide to do multi-weeks moving forward.
I think, and I'll probably defer to Si's expertise as he covers the team a lot more than I do, but in terms of how they kind of can use this as to their advantage, as you kind of both just said, the Jags are going to set up for 2 weeks, in London, whereas the Falcons have just arrived. If they can do that and they can turn that into their advantage, I don't see why not. But maybe Si's got a bit more of a detailed answer than that.
Not much detail to it. I think obviously the Jaguars are the only team that can do it. It's no surprise that they're trying it. I think, well, if you ask the question this time next year, if they've done it again next year, then we know what the intentions were from the start. It was to see if it would work, and then still try and drive it, because really no home Jacksonville fan should get upset about it, because they've only still lost one game. That being said, they still are getting upset about it. You have to listen to any Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. They just do not like being out here. And even they'll go, yeah, the advantage of being there for 10 days when the Buffalo Bills come, and it'll be jet lagged. They don't care. I think they're tired of the London narrative to some extent, are the home fans in Jacksonville. If going forward on a permanent basis, it gives them a real competitive advantage, they probably get less tired of it. They probably embrace it a little bit more. But I think, considering they've seen I think the Jaguars won 3 times since they've come over to London, I don't think they're convinced that there is any competitive advantage yet. The Jaguars just can't have nice things. It's just the way it is. So yeah, I think the jury's out from their perspective rather than anybody else. But for the NFL, yeah, they're just going to keep nibbling away at the edges, see where they can just try little things without upsetting too many people, and seeing just if it works. And obviously, it is working.
So the fans worried about, the fans in Jacksonville, are they worried about it being kind of seeds that are being sowed for a franchise or the franchise moving over here permanently, or is that not really a concern?
It might be an underlying concern. They talk a good game, and I think they're right. It's that they're building a new stadium eventually in Jacksonville. The money's there now. The municipality's coughing up some money towards it. It's going to happen eventually. So the stadium is the only reason why a team would move. If you have the stadium, and the fans, they're getting more and more fans every year as well, to be fair to them, in a city where they have to put swimming pools in the stadium to get people to come. I don't know if there's going to be anything quite as twee as that in the new stadium when it eventually comes. There's even rumours that they're doing some works on the current stadium. They might be playing at a NASCAR stadium for a few games next season, just as they do it. So there's all kinds of things going on. I just think they don't like I think that idea is so far away. I think it's more likely to be an expansion team that comes over here, and that's why they're trying different countries as well, so they can maybe do 2 or maybe even 4 eventually if it's really successful in other countries, and build it that way. And which I think is the right way as well, by the way, because I think I'd have a tough time supporting a team in this country if I'd known that a set of fans had lost a team in America. So I think it's the right thing to do. I just think that Jaguars fans are pretty much tired of the whole narrative. It's something thrown at them by other fans, as you would do. Anything you can beat other people up with a stick with, that's of course what you do as a fan. I think they're just it's a bit long in the tooth for them.
So moving back towards the game, then I think you guys have kind of alluded to it, or Willow has at least. It's the fact that these teams kind of do match up quite nicely against each other. Strength on strength in terms of the run game and the run defense. But Si, you mentioned Devin Lloyd being missing. How are the Jags going to have to get this done? If they do that, are they going to have to defend the run in other ways, or they're just have to throw the ball over the yard with Trevor?
Stopping the run is the key to the winning for Jaguars this weekend. If they can shut down the fact they put the ball in Ridder's hands, and I'm not condemning Ridder to the scrap heap or anything like that, but I'm saying the question is still there, and he has to prove it. They have to put that ball in his hands and make him throw it. They just do. Whether they can or not is a different matter. I think it was going to be a tough ask with Devin Lloyd, who's one of the fastest sideline backers in the league. Now Chad Moomer steps in, who's a really tough hitter. I love Chad Moomer playing when he was at Wyoming. He has not got that change of direction speed, and he might look a little bit foolish in spots on Sunday. I don't know how they're going to combat that, to be honest. There's some interesting narratives in that front seven. Obviously, Foye Oluwakon used to play for the Falcons, which is pretty cool, as did Ridley, obviously. And I think Calais Campbell will be in the front seven for the Falcons, certainly at spots on Sunday. So there's some knowledge of either side. They allow Atlanta to run on them, then they're gonna lose the game. I think is pretty much how it is. Because I can't foresee a way. I don't think Trev can throw as much on this team as he wants, because even though, as Willow said, his defense he finds it difficult stopping the run. They've got a talented secondary: AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates got a couple of takeaways already this season since he came over from Cincinnati.
He's got three. Yeah, he's got three. His joint top is hanging out on him at the moment. He's 3 and 4. That's obscene.
It is, and with with the personnel issues that the Jaguars have got in the passing game as well, that's not going to help things either. You've got Ridley going up against Terrell, and they were former teammates. That'd be quite interesting. He acknowledged he was a good player. I don't think he gave him too many flowers. I think it's an Alabama Clemson thing. But I don't see a way to win unless they very least control that run game. You can have a day, you can have 100 yards, but if they're just marching all over this front seven, then it's going to be a long old afternoon for the Jaguars, and I think that's the biggest key to the game for the Jaguars.
What about you, Will? How do the Falcons win this game?
Well, the Falcons win this game is Kyle Pitts and Drake London sort of show up. As far as I'm concerned, Kyle Pitts is an exceptional. He's a very tall man. Let me tell you from first-hand experience, he's a very tall man. And the pedigree coming out of college was, he's the highest drafted tight end of all time. He's got the second most yards in a rookie tight end season ever. Last season was difficult, both in terms of the quarterback play and the fact that he missed half the season with injury. It feels like he's still carrying something this year. Some of the when you go back and watch some of the routes he's running, kind of hobbling at the end or kind of limping at the end, and it's just kind of like, I don't know if he's 100%. But if the Falcons are going to be successful, they've got to get their top two guys the ball in the air to really open up that run option for them. Like they are very much, they are do or die by the run. If you take the run away from them, as we saw on Sunday, they haven't got a great deal else. But if they can sort of efficiently move the ball, not asking for 25, 30-yard bombs routinely. All I'm asking for is just kind of chip away at it a bit and keep the ball moving. The other thing is, as far as I'm concerned, if the Jacksonville Jaguars offense can click and they can turn this into something of a shootout, they win. The Falcons are not built to hang with teams. They are built to keep it close and then pull away. If this becomes sort of like a Jacksonville starts scoring and the Falcons need to respond, it's going to get out of hand. But we'll see how this. The defense has been, to its credit, very good at limiting teams through the air, and they too, Falcons too, have their own defensive injuries. Troy Anderson is a super fast linebacker. He is potentially out for the rest of the season with a pectoral injury. Player called Nate Lamben is replacing him, and he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good against Green Bay, and he looked pretty good against the Lions. But he's just kind of it's like that might be something to keep an eye on, whoever he's covering, kind of thing. Pass rush non-existent for the Falcons, so if Trevor Lawrence can stay upright, they'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I don't know. It's the long way around. Is I really don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic, but I also don't want to get ahead of myself. I do think the Falcons can win this game. I can also equally see a route where the Jaguars win this game. I think this is much more of a toss-up than it probably was expected to be at the start of the season. So yeah, it's definitely going to, at the very least, it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to be over before the end, if that makes any sort of sense.
Thanks for that, Willow. I think what Willow's trying to say, I think, without putting words in his mouth, clock control for the Falcons. If they control the clock, they control the flow of the game and how it goes, then they win.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and you can do, when you've got Bijan Robinson, when you've got Tyler Algier, when you've hopefully got sort of Cordarrelle Patterson, who are very good runners of the ball, who are capable of receiving the ball in their hands from passes, you're you are able to just keep the ball in play, and you're able to just do what you want with the clock. So they have the team to do that. But if it becomes just to repeat myself again, if it becomes a frantic, we need to get the ball 70 yards in 3 minutes or we're done, it's not happening. So yeah, just be smart, just play smart, basically.
Yeah. And Cordero Patterson, as you just mentioned, he's going to be a focus of an article that you're going to put the finishing touches to once you get off this call. Am I right?
Yeah, man. So Cordero Patterson, I've been the chairman of the Cordero Patterson is the best player in the NFL sort of fan club for the last 3 seasons. He is the best player in the NFL. I can't say any better than that. He's obviously been inactive all season. He's been kind of limited in practice, and then we get to the game day, and it's like, oh, he's out again. He had a soft tissue injury in preseason and a thigh injury for the last sort of few weeks. Arthur Smith was asked about it by the aforementioned Orlando Ledbetter, and he said that he's questionable for this weekend, but he's certainly trending in the right direction. First thing I did when I got out to the practice field was try to spot him, because I didn't know if he'd even flown over. Not only was he stretching, he was receiving the ball miles behind the line of scrimmage like everyone else. So hopefully he is playing, hopefully he is fit, and in the event that he is, he just offers what the Falcons are doing with Bijan Robinson at the moment. Again, basically, I'm not saying that he is the same, I'm not saying he's as fast, I'm not saying he's as shifty, but he is sort of Bijan Robinson but he's version 1 effectively. That is what he does, or what he has been doing in Atlanta since he's been here, and what that just gives you a viable option when Bijan Robinson is tired. I'm not going to give away the whole article, because I appreciate that I'm basically saying a lot of it now out loud. But yeah, keep an eye out for that tomorrow. That's as far as I'm concerned. If the Falcons are going to, if you're going to put emphasis on a single player, putting it on Desmond Ridder is probably not the right thing to do. I feel like if you're looking for a single X factor or a single difference maker, he could potentially be it.
Yeah, it's like I say, something that's going to be dropping on the touchdown on Saturday. So as you're hearing this, keep an eye out for that, and go over there and get another bit of preview for this game, guys. Like I say, it's going to be a good matchup. The London games always provide excitement. They always have a little bit of a wild feeling to them. Some things that are a bit weird always happen, or it seems to. I'm going to put you guys on the spot, and I'm going to ask you to give me a score prediction of some kind, or some sort of prediction, some sort of bold prediction, maybe a ballsy callsy, some might say, for this game. Willow, we'll come back to you first. Got one on us?
Okay, so what do we want? Okay, if I'm going for a score prediction, we'll go 28-24 Jaguars. I think that's the sort of scoreline it could be, and it could be either team, but we'll go Jaguars for the sake of this thing. Calvin Ridley is adored at Atlanta. Every player who was asked about him was glowing. AJ Terrell's really looking forward to playing him. Again, I don't know if that's a college thing. I don't know if that's because they're quite good mates or whatever. I really like him as well. I think he could have a very significant impact on the game. Let's go with 2 touchdowns and 150 yards from Calvin Ridley. Not necessarily always on AJ Terrell. He's a better cornerback than that. He's moving around the field, and then whoever he's on is struggling. So let's go with that. Calvin Ridley breaks out again in London. That's where we go.
Some ballsy callsy. Simon, what about yourself?
Well, just to spin off that, I've got a few stats for you. I read this the other day. Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley, and Christian Kirk, all 3 leading pass catchers from the Jaguars, all have 173 yards on the year this year. Exactly the same, which is crazy. But now adding 150 in one game to Ridley, that's a shocker. I think this is going to be really close. I think special teams might come into play with it, especially if Agnew and Patterson both make it. They're both questionable at the moment, but hopefully they'll both be in the field, because that's the kind of X factor that a Wembley or a London game kind of usually delivers. But I think it could go to the Falcons. I think the Falcons might win 21-20. I think you'll have a couple of field goals from Matt Prater, who might just look like the Jaguars are going to win it, and all of a sudden one big Patterson play and it's turned on its head. How about that?
I do not believe for a
Interesting.
second that the Falcons are capable of a big passing play, by the way. Although I would love to believe it. So, yeah, I'll hold you to it.
Hey, there's plenty of run after the catchability with those three running backs, really, that you've got, and especially with Bijan and Cordell Patterson in particular. And like I say, it's maybe a coming out party for the highly drafted pass catchers that you've got, with Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They, like you say, need to show up. And, Desmond himself, as you say, has got some critics on his back this early in his tenure. He needs to kind of, again, show out maybe in front of the international crowd. He can do that in Wembley Stadium of all places as well. So want to kind of etch his name into the law of, like, say, these London games, these UK games, these international games. So yeah, that'll be interesting. It'd be an interesting game, like I say, probably a close game. I will go equally, a close game. I think it could be something like 24-27, something like that. Either way, I'm not willing to stake which way that will go, but
classic Wakey, no ballsy callsy for
Wakey. Hey man, I'm not doing too well. I've got no points so far, so I probably maybe do need to step it up a little bit at that table. I notice how you've got me right down to the bottom. I think I'm 24 out of 25 as it is, but yeah, no, need to do a little bit better with the ball.
Alphabetical order, buddy.
Oh, is that it? Okay. But yeah, no, Si, we've obviously got a lot of content to do with the London games coming at the touchdown, haven't we? We got people at every game, is that right?
Yeah, so I'll probably write something about the Jaguars after the game. I don't know what Jack's going to do, but he's coming with me to the game on Sunday as well. So I'll make sure he does some content. He's not getting that. He's not getting that access for free. We've got people going to the two games at Tottenham as well, and hopefully we'll have other guys going to the press conference on the Fridays for both teams. So yeah, plenty of content to come. Keep your eye out. Follow us on Twitter. That's where it'll all be. It's so fast paced. It's hard to. I mean. Kudos to Willow for getting something out tomorrow. I've given up that game. I'll bundle mine all in one big article after Sunday. But yeah, it's nice to be able to get some some action, live action, without any Wi-Fi out on the field and directly from your phone. So yeah, give us all a follow and enjoy what we can give you. Yeah,
absolutely. At the Touchdown NFL. Yeah, if anyone's noticed on the stream, if Si's pitch has been going a little bit, he has done incredibly well to be tethering and to still be with us on the stream the whole way through. But yeah, like you say, we've got a lot of content coming out regarding the London games, and just content coming in general. We've had a great week of content, lots of really, really high quality stuff. Just plug my own content because why not? Dropped some of the plays I like video today on Friday to do with the Chargers. Mike Williams receiving that touchdown for Keenan Allen. So Willow, if you're thinking about passes behind the line of scrimmage, you can always pull something out of the bag like the Chargers did on Sunday. But I don't know if Arthur Smith would even have a long pass like that in the playbook. So we'll see. And then obviously myself, Willow, and Tay will be back for the Touchdown NFL podcast on Tuesday next week. But guys, that's about all we can talk through today before you guys collapse, I'm sure, with tiredness. On a 38-hour stretch you're on now, did you say earlier? That's some shift.
A 38-hour stretch in a weird room with no wardrobe and no Wi-Fi. So the things you do for football.
Yeah, well, we will let you guys retire and get some sleep and get refreshed for Sunday. But yeah, guys, thanks for jumping on. Been fantastic to have a catch up before the London preview. Like I say, stick with us. Drop a subscribe, drop a like on this video on YouTube, and like I say, go over to the Touchdown NFL on Twitter and over to our website and read all of our content as well. But guys, we'll sign off for the evening, and like I say, we'll see you next time.